Hello, and welcome to another episode of Digging a Little Deeper into English with Kirsten, where we will investigate what successful language learners have done in order to transform their communication and make that career change they were looking for.
So I'm really excited today to be joined for the chat with another industry veteran. Today's guest is a geophysicist with 30 years of industry experience, and he is from a country that I have a strong connection to, and that is Malaysia. His career has covered it all. He's worked in the government, in the private sector, and now he is a business owner himself. But don't let me tell you all about him. Let's hear from him directly. Welcome today, John Aluden, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to have this chat. How did I go with my description? Was I pretty accurate?
Thank you very much for your invitation to be on this session, and also for the very nice introduction. Yes, basically, I'm a geophysicist. I've been working almost 30 to 40 years in the field of near-surface geophysics. And I was formerly attached to the government for about 20 over years before I decided not to actually quit, but to take an optional retirement. All right. So in the government service, you're allowed to take an optional retirement when you reach the age of 50. So I took that opportunity to be employed, to be working with a private sector, a company, a Danish company, working on groundwater exploration for about 2 or 3 years. After which I decided maybe it's time for me, to start my own and go on my own. So basically, I started the company way back about 10 years ago, 2012 to be exact. So I was working with my own company, doing my own, what I love to be doing, that is geophysics. So I was doing a lot of mineral exploration programs, groundwater exploration, and also geotechnical and site investigation. So using near-surface geophysical methods. And so basically my passion for geophysics is still around until after about 30 or 40 years, after which I still love doing geophysics, still learning about geophysics. There is still a lot more for me to learn, right? Okay,
Certainly.
There's a brief start as far as my career is concerned. Okay.
And one of the things that you and I have in common is our background with training and developing interns, graduates. So tell me a little bit about that. Did you do that in the government or in the private sector?
Not really when I was in the government.
Okay.
In the government, I do conduct short courses actually. But when I was away from the government, when I was out from the government on my own, running my own company, then I started taking interns. So these interns are, graduates from in local universities. So I started taking them and especially guiding them on near-surface geophysics. That was the idea. But what I wanted to do is actually not only focus on near-surface geophysics, I also wanted them to be proficient and also conversant in English, in the sense that I conducted my internship program all in English, right? So I give them lectures, I provide them with assignment and exercises and projects to do. And all these are supposed to be done in English. So we communicated in English. I deliver my speeches, I deliver my lectures in English to them. So the idea was that I keep training them, I keep telling them that you have somehow to improve your English if you're going to go far in your career. Of course, in our country, in Malaysia, so they still prefer that Bahasa Melayu or Bahasa Malaysia. That is a standard language that every citizen should know. But I always stress on them that when you're joining big companies, big multinational companies, or even the local private sector, you will realize that most of the time they talk in English, they discuss in English, they communicate in English. Even they write their own reports, the reports to be written, the technical reports to be written, so all in English. So presentation are also done in English. So there is no problem, no issue. There is no way you are avoiding English. You got to face it head on. That's the way it is. So I train them, communicate with them, and try to come out. I know that even graduates nowadays, when you talk to them, they are not really confident. They don't have that confidence to really speak in English, communicate, and talk back to you. But the thing is that you just have to go head on and do it, So you got to improve yourself and be proficient in English. That's the way the training program, that I have, mostly interns. And by the way, I always I have done a lot of presentation, especially when you're bidding for projects, right?
Yes.
So when you're bidding for projects, say go to the company, go to your clients, so they wanted to see what you have. And that is always have been in English. So sometimes I win the bid, sometimes I lose, but that doesn't really matter. But the thing is that the communication skills, that the presentation skill, the communication skills that is there, it should be developed, right?
Yes.
That's how
absolutely.
I see it. That's how I train them actually.
Excellent. And your English is very good.
Thank
I
you
know.
very much.
Yeah, you said when you came on that you're a little bit unsure about your English, but it's very good. And there are some markers for very good English. So the words that you choose are very natural. They're the same words that a native English speaker would use. Yes, you have an accent. I have an accent. I sound very Australian. So accent aside, your English is very, very natural. What drove you to improve your English so much that it became natural? Was it easy for you or hard?
Not really. I wouldn't say it's really that difficult, but it wasn't really also hard. The thing is that I was trained very early in English during my school days, during my primary school days. When I was in primary school days and I go to secondary schools, all are in English at that time, right?
Yes.
What changed me is when I was in university. All of a sudden, you have something which is, you are fairly familiar with the English language, but in universities, they use the national language, right? Which is Bahasa Melayu. Yeah.
Yes.
So from then onwards, I see that you have only the foreign lecturers who came in. They speak English. They deliver lectures in English, but the local they deliver in Bahasa Melayu or in Malay language, right? So, and then you mix around with all people of the same race. So that is really a big problem. I know that my written English is pretty well, right? So I can write quite well, but not speaking, because most of the time you see around are all my Malay friends. So when these people are there, right? So even though you don't really speak English at all, you speak Malay all the time.
Yes.
So even when I was in school, we only speak English in school when you're required to. Back home, no. You are still with your parents, with your siblings, where you still speak Malay language, So there is a difference between, I feel personally, there's a big difference between when you're writing and you're speaking. Speaking really needs practice, practice, right? So like I said just now, basically when I started working, then I see that all my bosses, my colleagues, most of them are non-Malays. And then started communicating in English with them. It was really hard. It was very, really slow, So it's always thinking, what is the next word will be coming out of my mouth, You start thinking about it, when you talk to them. But eventually it goes around, you kept speaking to them, talk to them often, and then it becomes, I would say it comes naturally, but it comes really the hard way. But in the end, you can really grasp the language when you are trying to communicate. The thing is, basically, you have friends who are non-Malays, which make me draft myself to speak English with them.
Immersion, challenging training, learn the hard way.
Yes, true.
Yeah,
Yes. That's the way I learned,
excellent.
actually. The bosses and my colleagues who are non-Malays. That forced me to speak in English.
Even when you were terrified,
Yes, of course.
you just
I
have to do
remember
it.
doing my
Yeah.
first presentation, as
Yeah.
a professional, you have to do a presentation. I
Yes.
was, I was required to do the presentation. And I see a lot of my colleagues, Malay colleagues, delivering in English, in Malay, in the Malay language. I was thinking,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, that particular day, my paper was slotted as the last paper of the day. So I was thinking, why should I present in English or in Bahasa Melayu? So I kept thinking about it, and in the end, I just go for it. I decided that I should speak English. So I deliver my
Yay.
first presentation in English. That's it.
And how did that go? You would have stood out because you were the one person who delivered it in the global business language. Did that open a door that wouldn't, if you'd done it in Malay, you'd just be one of the others? Did that event in itself give you opportunities?
Of course it does. What happened was that, all the bosses there are, like I said, are non-Malays, right?
Mm,
So when they saw someone who is a Malay speaking and delivering, doing a presentation in English, of course, some of them feel that, oh, you can do it, So
mm,
as if all the presentation that had been done earlier was in Bahasa Melayu. Sometimes, these old bosses, they have issues in understanding Bahasa Melayu themselves, right?
yes,
Because they're
of
so
course.
familiar with English. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're so familiar with English. So they're going to have some issues when people, colleagues delivering their presentation in Malay, right? So I would say that it gives me a plus point doing my
Yeah.
first presentation in English.
Yes. 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 I did not expect any different answer. Even if the presentation was terrible, the fact that you did it in English would just stand out.
Right.
So it would be
But
excellent.
just imagine how nervous I was.
Oh, I can imagine. I absolutely can imagine. I When I interviewed in Malaysia in particular, um, uh, I would see people come to the interview and they're in the background. They're not talking to me yet, and
Okay.
they looked a bit nervous. Everyone going for a job interview was nervous, and then they walked in the room and they saw me, and instantly the look of terror on their faces when they realize they have to do it all in English. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm just so grateful that they try, even if it's terrible. They're giving it their best, and that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I can imagine your face would have been your feelings inside would be like their faces the first time.
Ah, you just cannot count but the butterflies in my stomach like this.
Yeah. And so you're in a really very strong position to I guess give some tips to people in if they're back where you were, other than the terrifying immersion, just do it. Is there anything that you can think, like I talk about podcasts and things that help to expose people to listening or whatever. Is there anything you think can help people watching TV programs or reading? What is it you think can help people the most?
Nowadays, I think the internet is something that it's a
Hmm.
very good resource actually, right?
Yes. Yep.
You look like things like YouTube,
Yes.
a lot of social media platforms that you can
Hmm.
really harness your English. Keep on listening to this YouTube, even if you're looking. I mean, the tendency is that if you are Malay, you wanted to watch something which is in Bahasa Melayu, of course.
Mm-mm,
But I
mm-mm.
think I would advise that you watch something in English, right? Watch
Yes.
something in English. Watch films in English, especially, right? Read something in English, especially, right?
Yeah.
So this will make you. One thing is that it make you interested in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
it has
realized
to be fun.
if you have, yes, I realized that if you do this very early in your age, I have experienced this with my 13-year-old daughter. Now she's 15, all right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So her tendency to watch YouTube and all the other social media platforms in English, she improves a lot in
Yeah.
speaking English to me. So we
Yes.
often discuss things in English together, even though she's only 13 or 15 years old, no? But the effect it has, I think, is tremendous. If
Yeah.
you start listening, if you start watching things in English, somehow it will lift your level of English to a certain level that you become really very interested, and you got to know about the language more. And one of the most important thing that I think that I until now, which I'm doing, is that I've always keep a small dictionary with me, even in my handphone.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that is very, very important. So when I
Yes.
see certain things, especially on the pronunciation and also what it means. So, basically we are not from the English speaking nation.
No. Yep. Excellent. Yeah, I really like the dictionary tip, and also a notebook. Sometimes you can hear a word and you can write down the word. You can go back later in your notebook and have a look at using it in some examples, because sometimes the word can be a little bit different in different sentence structures. So you can really get a lot deeper into that word. Yesterday I had a class with someone, a session, and we talked about some difficulties he was having in the workplace. And he said, yeah, this group are working independently of this group, and they're not working together. So I use the phrase silo mentality, because that is the business term for when you've got two parts of the organization who are not working together. They're working in silos.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was so excited by this word. He wrote it down and he was off after the session to keep exploring what that word means. And that's exactly the kind of proactive attitude. You hear something, it's a powerful term, you're going to want to use it, then, look it up, like you talk about with your dictionary, really start to think about it. And that's a really, really powerful tip.
Yes, I think everyone, and then sometimes some weird kind of words you see, and all of a sudden, what does this word means? So, nowadays very simple that you have things on your handphone, you just tap it and see what it means. But what I love about this online dictionaries is that it shows you how to pronounce the word.
Yes.
Like I said, English is something like the spelling looks very different. The sound might be even more different from the spelling itself.
Yes. Yeah, Google Translate, push that speak function and it will say the words. So you're right. You can hear and read. Excellent. Okay. Well, I could keep talking to you for hours, but I'm sure that the audience will be exhausted. So I guess we'll try and wrap up here. Do you have any final tips for the audience? Any message you want to send to all the listeners as we finish up?
Okay, my only message is that please bear in mind that English is, I would say, a worldwide language, right? So one day, if you come up to be a leader of a nation, for example, there is a need for you to really focus, be able to communicate, convey your ideas in English. So from the very beginning, if you are still at school, if you are still very young, start doing and learning your English. If you're already a graduate, a professional, and you think that you need to improve your English, basically what you need to do is push yourself. Push yourself to learn. All right? Don't stay back and don't say that, it's enough what I've known. No, English is something that you have to develop. You have to grow with the language, right? So talk to someone who is maybe your colleague or someone in your family who loves to do the same thing. Talk to them in English, discuss something with them in English. Okay, and just bear in mind that one day you'll find that learning English is something that would be very helpful in future, especially if you're going to grow in your career internationally, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I could not agree more with anything that you said. 100% agree with all of it. And my last little tip is, and I think you did it without knowing it, is to find the fun in it. So
yes.
Yeah, it takes a while, but talking can be fun. Find the right group of people to talk with and have fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your wealth of experience with everyone else. And I'm sure you and I will keep talking on LinkedIn, on everywhere else. We'll keep talking. You'll get some practice.
Right. You're most welcome. And always, I think we will always be in touch.
Well, that's it for our interview today. To download a transcript of the audio, click the link below. You'll find it in the show notes. Don't forget, if you want to be notified when the next great interview with successful non-native English professionals in the mining industry is released, click subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. And if you are ready to take control of your English, transform your communication skills, and see that payback in your career, then shoot me an email at ksdsmith@gmail.com or visit me on LinkedIn. The links are again below in the show notes. Until the next episode, take care and keep on digging.